Speak No Evil is a 2022 Dutch thriller that was released in the cinemas in Europe, a limited release in the UK, and I believe a very limited release in the United States. Speak No Evil 2024 was a Blumhouse horror thriller released worldwide in all cinemas in all countries, and it really didn't need to be. We're going to talk about why in this episode of Short Notice Horror. We'll see the differences between the two films, why they decided to do a remake, and if it really should have been released at all. My opinion is no. First of all, let's talk about Speak No Evil 2022. When I watched this film, I didn't know what to expect. It starts off quite pleasant. A family who've clearly gone through some sort of maybe marriage issues, and they're trying to resolve those. They're on a holiday with their daughter in Italy, and they meet another family who have a young boy. And at first, they seem a bit like gregarious, they seem a bit over the top, but the guy, the Dutch couple, and the main character, he's quite a timid sort of guy. Maybe it's because of what's happened with the hints at an affair, but he seems to go along with whatever his wife says. There's an uncomfortable dinner that you can tell he's not really into towards the start of the film. But when they meet this other couple in Italy, they seem to be a very carefree, like a free living, almost like a hippie sort of couple, and they seem fun loving. They would get on really well, actually, despite the fact that they seem a bit uncouth at first, and you can tell the Dutch couple are maybe a wee bit sort of, high society. They eventually warm to them. Towards the end of the trip, they go their separate ways, but before they go their separate ways, the gregarious couple invite the Dutch couple to their home. At first, they're a bit reluctant because they're like, well, it's a bit weird, we just sort of met these guys. But they go back home, and eventually they decide to live life a little bit, and the wife opens up and says to the husband, why not, let's go visit them, which they do. And they go to visit them. They live in the countryside. The guy of the free loving couple, the father, he has said that he's a doctor, but when they get to the home, it seems quite humble. It's almost like a broken down sort of house in the countryside, and it is quite isolated as well. And from there on in, there's the first signs maybe over the dinner that something's not quite right. And the story, it takes quite a turn. Now, in order to tell the differences between the two films, I am going to have to spoil what's going on. And this will highlight the difference between why the most recent one, the 2024, in my opinion, I don't think needs to be made or needed to be made. Now, as the sort of spend a couple of days, the days goes on, they start to notice things subtly, such as the lady's a vegetarian, from the Dutch couple is a vegetarian, and the guy makes dinner for them as a sort of welcome, but he makes a meat-based dish, and he sort of forces her to eat a bit, but she's being polite, so she does try some. They go out for a meal, but they've got the two children, and the Dutch family expect the kids to come along. But they've hired a babysitter who's a guy that seems pleasant enough. To tell him, oh, he's lovely, he's a babysitter, he does it all the time. And they leave their kids behind to go out for this meal in a restaurant, which they end up paying for. Now, that's subtly done. It's just done in a friendly way. And you can understand why they're like, I don't think anything of it. It's maybe a wee bit of a different, slight culture differences, but they get along. Now, there's a turning point where the father isn't quite as close to his son as you would expect a father to be. He's always kind of talking down to him, verbally abusive. In one particular scene where the kids are trying to show them a dance they've worked out, it is harrowing and it's hard to watch. But gradually as the film goes on, the couple that decide to leave, they've had enough and they leave, and the young daughter has got a bunny rabbit. It's like a teddy bear, but it's a bunny rabbit, so it's not a teddy, it's a bunny rabbit. And they leave in the middle of the night, but as they leave, the daughter realizes that she's left behind the bunny, and they have to go back. As they go back, the couple catches them out and they're like, oh, we didn't expect you to leave. And they're still playing like everything's normal. Like their behavior, what they do is completely normal to them. And maybe they think that these other guys shouldn't be so like stiff-shirted, you know? So they decide to stay then. And it's at that point you go to yourself, fuck me, I would have been gone, fuck the rabbit, we'll get you another one. I understand you're attached to it, but when you're 18, you'd be too busy drinking WKD and not give a fuck. So I'd have been gone. So it transpires from there. This is where everything comes out. And the couple, they try to get away again, but they don't realise that the father of the sort of the main antagonist is following them. And their car breaks down. The husband, the Dutch husband, tries to get out. He tries to go and get help, so he leaves his wife and his daughter in the car behind. And when he comes back, he sees that the free-loving dad has picked them up. But he knows he's on to them, and he knows that they know, right, something's not up here. Like, towards the end, it has to be one of the most shocking endings to a film I've ever seen. Again, spoilers if you haven't seen it. But the guy who was the babysitter, they've got the couple and the daughter in the car. They pull up, they go for a drive. They start to get abusive in the car. They start shouting at them. And it's at this point they realise there's something really fucking wrong here. So they come to a stop, and the guy who was the babysitter appears in another car in front of them. Opens the back door of the car, grabs the young daughter of the Dutch couple, cuts her fucking tongue out, and they take her away. And the story is that these people have been trafficking children, taking children. They've been wanting a kid of their own as like a replacement. The young son of the free-loving couple, you come to realise that he's not their son. They've told him he's got a congenital disorder with his tongue, so he can't speak, hence the title. But that's really not the case. They've kidnapped him from another family who they've done the exact same thing to, and they've cut this kid's tongue out and kept him around. Now, my personal understanding is they've kept him around as a lure when they go to these holiday destinations to bring in other families, and they're just selling off their kids. And it's at this point that the hippie, free-loving couple, who we realise are MAGA bastards at this point, take the Dutch couple to a quarry. They make them strip off completely naked, and they stone them to fucking death. And that's where the film ends. Before dying, the Dutch father says, why are you doing this? And it's a line that's echoed in the remake, but not as justified, because this film is all about control, and it sells that really well. And the hippie free-loving guy says, because you let me. And the film ends with them getting stoned to death. Now in the 2024 film, here's where it becomes pointless. People always say remakes. Don't complain about remakes, you'll always have the original. I 100% no. I 99% agree. The 1% of me where I believe remakes don't need to be done is the remake of Speak No Evil. Speak No Evil was remade under the illusion that the original is a foreign film. The original is a foreign film, but it's not a foreign-speaking film. Because the couples are from different countries, their common language between the two of them is English. There's only about 20% of this film that is in the original native language. Majority of it's in Dutch. Actually, Dutch is the only other language because when the two couples together, they're all speaking English. So why remake this film? And I know why. You could have took, if art is all about the artist and filmmakers should be, obviously back to the full all the way, you could have took, Blumhouse could have taken the money that it took to make this film and put it in theatres and advertise it. They could have done that to re-release the Dutch film and put it worldwide in cinemas. It would have cost them a hell of a fuck lot less, because they obviously got actors in such as James McAvoy, who's in the remake, who plays the bad guy, the bad father, the hippie father. He's only there because he looks like, this is my opinion, he looks like the original actor. His performance it's almost like a parody of the original actor's performance. So, not to slag off James McAvoy because he's a good actor, but the film didn't need to be made. The first hour is a carbon copy of the original, a carbon copy, very much way in the Psycho remake that they did. It's a carbon copy until the last half hour, which is shit. The last half hour turns into like a wannabe Straw Dogs situation that completely take out the abduction of the children. They completely take out the death of the Dutch family, who's the American family in the remake. It's all the same. American family go to Italy, meet this couple. It's almost shot for shot the same. They meet the couple, they invite them to their home, which is in England. The Americans happen to be staying in England, so that's really the only difference. Is location's irrelevant. It's all still, like isolated, although he does say he's a doctor, and then he fakes it, but then he says, no, I am really a doctor. And the size of the place that they live on sort of sell, even though it's still quite bohemian, it still sort of sells the idea, oh, he could be a retired doctor, and they're living like the fucking high life. The last half hour is just terrible because they should have had the balls. If you're going to remake it, have the balls to do the original justice. Don't just copy the original and then create a brand new fucking ending for mainstream audiences. Blumhouse is meant to be a horror production company. Now, obviously they put out watered down versions of films, but it was completely pointless in remaking this film if you weren't going to have the impact of the end. I can understand taking a small European film that no one's seen. I mean, you can go all the way back to the remakes of the Japanese horror films like The Ring and The Grudge. They didn't really change the ethos of those stories. They kept the scares and everything the same. Now, while it's not strictly a horror film, the remake just becomes this really dull, dead thriller. By the end, it's so predictable. You know they're going to get away. If there'd been a fucking dog in it, you knew the dog was going to survive. But I don't think there is a dog in it. Maybe a couple of chickens, but they don't get killed. They're fine. It's just chickens, they're grand. So moving away from the original horrific ending, the traumatic ending that truly left me shaken as a viewer. And I've seen a billion horror films, probably much like yourselves. Everything from Cannibal Holocaust when you were a kid, we went fucking hell, but now as an adult, there's more things that lead you to think about what really is horror and the horrors that are outside your door as opposed to inside, some sort of Suspiria gate of fantasy. So yeah, this is a remake for me that was pointless, did not need to be there, and the original deserved to be seen by more people. So if you're going to respect the artist, well then respect the artist. I mean, for all I know, they could have approached the original director, which is possible. We've seen that before and asked him to remake his film. And if that's the case, you can almost be guaranteed that director would have wanted to remake the full film and not change the ending to some homogenized Hollywood bullshit ending, which is what they did. That's just my 2p's worth. So there you go. Another positive review. Well, it's not really a review. It's just more like a look back and something that I was thinking about. It was someone's comments on one of the socials the other night sort of made me think, because I know a lot of people have seen the remake and then went back and thought, oh, it's not as good. Which is fair enough. Maybe that's my opinion as well, because I seen the original and think this is not as good. But I can step outside of that and look at the pros and cons of why they might want to do it, which was money, money, money. And then the con of the fact that they just completely watered down and diluted what the whole thing was about in the first place and had a happy ending, which sometimes films don't need to have. There you go. That's my opinion. Thanks for joining me and rattled on. I know I fucking rattled on a bit, but I think it's something that might be worth a topic of conversation. And if so, please subscribe. The views have been growing up gradually, which I'm really, really grateful for and I'm happy to see. But if you could just hit that subscribe button and obviously the notification button, I'd really appreciate it. Try and get as much as I can put together for you. More discussional topics, more reviews. Might not agree with them all, but well, that's life. Thanks very much for joining us, guys. All the best. Cheers.